So I'm here with SEMPHIS after their unfortunate loss at the America's Armor, eliminating Nouns from the major qualification. So I wanted to ask, you had your BO1 yesterday and then your decider today on Inferno, where you unfortunately could only muster 2 rounds on T side. I was wondering what went wrong there.
You know, both teams played well, obviously, so not trying to take anything away from them. I think the Fury game, we had a little bit of technical issues at the start, which maybe didn't help, getting that confidence up. Not necessarily it's the reason we lost, but I just think, it's always nice to not start a game with, some issues. But again, like I said, we should have still got more than 2 rounds, even with those issues at the start, so as sad as it sounds, I do think if we could just get 4 rounds, even three to get a little bit of a buffer, we would have been able to maybe get to OT or clinch out some of those CT sides, because we're actually pretty confident in our CT. I think even both games you can kind of tell we're pretty good on CT. I think T side, what mainly went wrong is we just are having issues with just the basic fundamentals of banana and bracket control, and it might sound sad because as professional players you think those are the kind of things that we should be doing correctly, but for some reason things just keep going wrong when we do it, and it's hard. We reviewed a lot last night. It's not like we lost a Fury and we just went to sleep. We reviewed the games, listened to the comms back, tried to come up with a new plan, but again, we kind of just fell into the same trap. So we'll have to go and fix that moving forward, because it was just embarrassing the way that we lost those games. So.
Right, okay. And a few weeks before this event, you added on Adren as a co-coach, and I was wondering what he's brought to the team as bolstering the coaching staff.
I think Adren's really good at kind of tweaking things that they're doing wrong mid-game. I think my strength is more bringing full strategies or pistol rounds, and I like to really create a game plan. But in their defense and everything, I felt really sick when I was in the UK, and that was the majority of our boot camp. We have a new lineup. So I feel like I let them down a bit in that aspect, because normally I would have brought more. But when you're sick and you just aren't feeling good, it's really hard to be productive, and I was having a really hard time concentrating. This is actually the first event now where I figured out my issue. If anyone didn't know, I had cannabis hypernemesis syndrome, which is not really known. So if you smoke a lot of weed, Google it and be careful, because it's really not fun. And when you're detoxing from it, you can't concentrate or anything like that. So yeah, essentially I felt like I let them down a little bit, but at the same time, Adren was there the whole time, and he was helping a lot. So to answer your main point, I do think he's really good at in that situation, you should do this. Here, just go faster. He's really good at kind of pinpointing more of the intricacies of the round, not maybe necessarily bringing an entire strat to the team, which is obviously really useful. So I think he's helped a lot, though.
So just wondering, is there maybe an opportunity in the future for Adren to stand behind the team during LAN events, or is that something that you're going to be continuing forward?
I'm not actually sure. I actually wanted him to be behind, but because like I said, I was sick in the UK, so Adren was there more than I was. So I actually would have preferred him to be behind the team. Just thought it would have worked better, but we qualified in Dallas with my name on the thing, and we weren't able to change it. So that was a little unfortunate, because there's just nothing we could have really predicted. It wasn't something I knew was going to happen. So, but I would have felt a little bit better, at least at this event, with him being more involved in the last, I would say, 2 weeks. I think it would have been nicer to have him behind there. But while we were playing, he was doing work on the laptop and having things. So in the halftime, we could come out and he would have notes. And if he was behind, then I would do the same thing. I would actually prefer to do that. I think the lights from the game actually get to me a lot. My eyes were watering a little bit in that game. So I don't mind either way. It's just I don't know, in CSGO, when you're coaching behind people, you just kind of feel kind of useless anyways. You get 3 30-second pauses. It's really not that much to make a huge difference. I thought I did a good job on Vertigo taking my pauses. I thought everyone that I made was useful and beneficial. Overpass was, notoriously it's been one of my weaker maps as a player and a coach, so I have a harder time on that one personally. And then when you're getting stomped, kind of sometimes it feels hard. You have like one pause, and it's like, do you want to waste a pause to try to like get their heads back in the game, or do you want to save it to like maybe have a strat that you think would work or a setup? So it's a fine line when you only have 3, right? Because there are times where you're losing like 8-1, and it feels like you want to just take a pause just to get their heads back in the game, but at the same time, it can kind of feel like a waste. So,
Right, and back to back to Adren again. You both have the same title of coach. There's no coach assistant coach going on or strategic coach as far as we're aware. Is there any issues for having like too many cooks in the kitchen, or are the roles separate enough?
it's still fairly new, so it hasn't really been like solidified completely. And like I said, in the UK, I wasn't feeling that great, and that's where most of our like progress was made. I think like I think like we don't really overstep each other, like it's like a mutual respect thing. So like if I say something, he might agree. If he says something, I might agree. Like I said, it's nothing crazy. I think when we go over review, usually he'll be the one kind of skimming through the rounds on the Sky. But we have pay for a Skybox Edge, which is like a program you can watch demos through in 2D. And he writes a lot of notes and stuff like that. So we have pros and cons to both of us, and I think we kind of like fit well. But like I said, it's just like it's still very new. So like maybe in 6 months it'll be different, or if he's only actually been a temporary sign too. So it was like maybe things don't work out. I don't know. So it's like we kind of just put all our eggs into the major basket. Like we didn't really think past this, if that makes sense. So like when I'm saying anything, there's nothing against anything. It's no negatives. It's just more like we went into it. We got Junior George. We got Adren. We went in. While we were at home, I was bringing some strats and pistols and stuff like that, trying to like help with the map tactics and stuff. Carson's kind of a new IGL. Adren was helping. So everyone was just kind of helping as much as they could in a bunch of different ways. So I guess to answer your question, we didn't really like split duties up or anything like that.
And continuing the conversation about coaching staff, we also know that not too recently, but earlier, you had a mental coach. I believe it was Mindbody Esports who was with you, who's now working with Liquid at this event. How was the experience of working with someone who was so dedicated on the mental side and emotional side of the team?
Yeah, I think Edward's awesome. I think he works really well with everyone. He's pretty like mellow. He doesn't really try to force anything, but he's pretty reflective of like, he's good at knowing what a player needs, like if they're reserved or if they're like confident. He can kind of match the energy a bit. He doesn't go and do a lot of those cringy type of speeches that I've had a couple different sports psychologists in the past, and like sometimes they say things, and these are young gamers, they don't care about like certain things. So I think he's good at navigating that, and I think he's very beneficial. But at the same time, I do think you need the team to buy into a sports psychologist, and if they're, I guess he's not technically a sports psychologist. He's like I forget what he says he is, but there's like a technical term that he doesn't like to be called. Yeah. to be called
Physio
that.
something.
Yeah, wellness coach or something like that. But yeah, like I said, he's very beneficial. But if you have a team and they all think it's lame and they don't, then it's worthless. And that's nothing against him, but like that's just like kind of realistic, right? So when we got him originally, it was kind of like we had some players on the team that we thought he could be useful with on the Dota and the CS team, and then he's working with a lot of different teams, and so I don't actually know exactly what happened on there, but yeah, I think we just kind of mutually parted ways at the end there, and in the future, if I work with him again, that'd be great because I thought he was useful. Yeah.
And you also mentioned this a little ago, that how Carson is a new IGL, and he's coming into this new role. How is that development going? And basically, how's it going?
Yeah, I think like Carson, like I said it before in other interviews, is I always thought he's one of those players that he's done well in like managing his life outside of the game, and I feel like that translates well to an IGL. You know, goes to school, does his homework on time, gets his grades done. So he's able to like balance things, and I think as an IGL that can be important because that means like when you're going to go and do review or whatever, he'll have things prepared. He'll have strats, setups. Like he might say, "Yo, Kory, bring 2 pistols and an inner execute on nuke," and then I'll do that. So then he doesn't have to do that. That's, you know, the perks of having a coach, right? So I can help him a little bit with that. I think at this event, this is his first like high stress, you know, event. I think, in my opinion, we need to have a slower pace a bit because like maybe I'm just old, but I like to just, in my opinion, when you're playing fast and a little loose, it's okay at the start of the game, but once you've been shut down, I like to slow it down, let them have map control. So like on Inferno, for example, if you're losing, just give them banana, give them mid if they want it, you know, just take the L and then retake it later because they have, you know, a million nades, all the ops, anything they want they can afford. They also have confidence because when you're up 5-0 or something, like you're a little bit more willing to die doing a peak because you have that like buffer and you have the extra money to buy the next round. Whereas, you know, if you lose the round and you're on an eco, you're less likely to want to go for like a cocky play or maybe a more ambitious play. So I think that's the only thing is like we need to refine a little bit of like the way that we play the game when things aren't going our way. I think when things are going our way, he's a great caller. I think he just needs maybe a little bit more experience when things aren't going our way. And yeah, so we had the boot camp in Sheffield in the UK, and we actually were playing really well on Inferno, so I guess that's why we were more confident in it. But here's, you know, shows what happens when things don't go your way. You know, we need a little bit more fallback plans. This is not all on the caller either. You know, there was a couple of rounds where we got the pick and we just didn't scale fast enough, and then it gets in that weird awkward period where it's like you kind of missed the window. You got the pick, you could have scaled in and overwhelmed, but now you let him reposition. The rotates are coming in, flashes are coming in. You kind of missed the window, so now you're actually at a disadvantage where you should almost just at that point just say you know, freeze, reset, and then maybe go back and clear mid or wait and just re-execute. So there are just little things like that that I think, you know, there's a lot of pressure at these events, and unfortunately, I do think that was one of the main reasons we lost. Not taking anything away from other teams, I think they all played really well, but we went 1-7 in pistols, and like, I don't know, like that's just not normal for us. Like we usually, like I'm not saying we win all the pistols in the world, but that's not typical, right? And I do think we blew a lot of rounds. We got ecoed a ton, and there's just a lot of mistakes that were made.
And a final question before I let you go. Previously, you guys brought in Junior and George, probably the biggest change that Nouns has seen since, you know, becoming Nouns. How is that process like? You know, they were brought in to be these huge firepower upgrades, and obviously the results didn't really turn out here. So,
no, I mean, I think George is a great player. I think they're both really good. Peyton's been playing really well with the op. I think he kind of saved her ass on Vertigo with a couple crucial kills on CD side. Inferno, he was playing lights out on CT side. Unfortunately, it wasn't like enough to get us across the line. He's just a really solid opper, and that's something we kind of like missed is just a consistent opper that kind of like always ops, and you kind of know what you're going to get from him. Before we kind of had someone that would just kind of decide whenever he wanted. There wasn't maybe the consistency there, so it made life a little bit harder on the riflers, especially on the op heavy maps. So I feel that actually helped us a lot. George is like a really good passive player, you know. I don't think George is the type of guy that's just going to straight carry your team, you know, like he's kind of like supporting with nades and stuff, but like when the team's doing well, he just makes you even better, you know, and I think that's a really beneficial player to have on a team. I don't think that's a negative. CD side, he's like super good, you know, he's really good at banana, B on Inferno, and any anchor spot that you put him at. T side, I just think our T sides in general just need a lot of work. I don't think it's any one player's fault. Yeah, no, George is just like, he's really good. They're both really good additions.
all right, well, thank you for the interview.
Thanks.